This is the issue on the planet right now. Our life support system is in jeopardy, and this could mean the demise of our species this century. There's a lot of vested interest against you knowing this because the status quo and the way the world works is immensely profitable. So it's a big battle we're undertaking, but I think exactly the one that's necessary. I was inspired to make Revolution because of the journey making Sharkwater. You know, shark populations dropped 90% in 30 years because of shark fin soup. Shark fin soup was $400 a pound, and that's just crazy. And when Sharkwater came out and government policy started changing and conservation groups started popping up and people started saying no to shark fin soup, that showed us, yeah, humanity's good. You know, they will do the right thing. The Sharkwater tour was incredible. We went to a dozen countries at least.
This is so much fun. I'm pretty well running everywhere.
Had some incredible parties. Tyler McLeod has been my best friend since grade 7. Tyler worked with me on the entire PR tour of Sharkwater.
We are en route in our limo.
The more attention we can bring to the cause, the more attention we can make people know about what goes on in the oceans, the better.
Joining our panel right now is Rob Stewart.
Rob Stewart. Fascinating stuff.
Rob Stewart, thank you, man. Congratulations. Great.
Things were looking up for sharks. Even celebrities were coming on board.
There's so many well-known people all together have that goodwill going to keep all those wild animals.
I saw a very powerful film called Sharkwater. Ever since seeing that film, I've been involved in trying to protect the shark.
We were at the premiere of Sharkwater in Hong Kong. We're about to get this movie that I spent so long on, seen by 120 million people.
He's at work today. He's not a new man.
A woman in the audience puts up her hand and says, "Why stop us from eating shark fin soup if all the fish are going to be gone by 2048 anyways?" Citing studies from Dalhousie University in Halifax and pointing out that if fishing trends continue, we'll have wiped out the entire oceans. You know, pretty good question. Difficult to answer that. Our film didn't address the size of the problem.
In all of our studies of world fisheries, we've seen this continuous trend of collapse of fish stocks. No matter how you slice or dice the data, with every year there's a higher proportion of fish stocks collapse. Sharks, tuna, billfish, whales, seals, manatees, sea turtles even. Everything large that you can find in the ocean has been depleted, on average, by almost 90%.
Right after the movie premiere, I got an eye infection from all the pollution in the air.
I mean, this is a bargain with the devil in terms of the attitude and philosophy of what constitutes success in the modern world. It's basically money at any price. According to the World Bank, air pollution costs China 3.8% of GDP. The likelihood of me having a stroke on the street is not low. It literally kills 3 people every day.
So now the mosquito is going to bite you. Okay, please close your eyes, okay? Just like a mosquito bite. All right, the pus coming out. So far, so good.
You feel anything?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, I'm going to squeeze out all the content. There's something trapped inside. There's a way out, but still need some pressure. Okay, good, finished.
It's not look comfortable at all.
All right, the wound is here, okay. The wound's here, okay. Good.
Oh my goodness.
All right, finished.
You know, I don't think we quite understand how bad this is going to get yet. You know, we've been talking about the environment going wrong for decades. And at some point, and we're already hitting it in parts of the world, our failure to address these issues substantively is running us into walls that are going to kill people. And if we continue to do it, it's going to kill lots of people.
We really polluted the air so much that I could have to have an eye operation because of it. And it was a bit of a turning point for me because, one, it was pointed out the last few years of my life meant nothing. And also, you know, I needed to figure out what to do. After Hong Kong, I went to Australia. Took some time and sort of went looking for land. and tried to figure out, you know, do I just retreat, grow some vegetables and let society destroy itself? Or do I, you know, go to battle kind of thing? I met up with David Hannan, who is one of my best friends and one of the best underwater cameramen in the world. He told me about ocean acidification and told me that there's this massive problem on the horizon that could wipe out everything in the oceans, and that this problem has caused massive extinctions in the past, and that we need to do something about it. Most people think climate change is this big environmental issue, but climate change is a symptom of the problem, not the problem itself. A far, far bigger problem is the carbon we put into the atmosphere. It doesn't just stay in the atmosphere, it gets absorbed by the oceans, creating carbonic acid, making the oceans 30% more acidic than they were 100 years ago. And that this increasing ocean acidity could cause an extinction, just like the extinction that wiped out the dinosaurs, and we'd be a part of that extinction. And that's an environmental issue most people don't know about. Hannan introduced me to Charlie Veron, the godfather of coral. Charlie's discovered, you know, at least a quarter of all the known coral species. He's the most respected coral scientist in the world.
Well, I've learned not name corals after places because they always find somewhere else, girlfriends because they never last, and colour because the colour's always different somewhere else.
Ocean acidification is probably the most harmful thing it's possible to do to a coral reef because it will stop them from growing.
Most corals are slowing down by 10–15% now.
Yeah.
And so by mid-century, these guys will be out of business.
If coral reefs cease to exist, the habitats that they create will cease to exist. And as the oceans shut down, then the lungs of the earth shut down. When all this fails, we will have another, what we call a mass extinction. When all life on this planet dies off. It's happened before. It can happen again.
Charlie took me to Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea was a place that I'd always wanted to go to because there was a cuttlefish there called the flamboyant cuttlefish. And about 10 years earlier, I'd been to Malaysia as a wildlife photographer and I'd met the flamboyant cuttlefish. And it's a tiny little creature like that long, walks along the bottom of the ocean, waving its arms around, bright red, and it's so poisonous that it's not afraid of anything. It's such a charismatic little creature. So I really hope to see the flamboyant cuttlefish in Papua New Guinea. It took 4 million years for corals to rebuild reefs after the last extinction. And when they recovered, the place with the greatest diversity of habitats, currents, and life was the area around New Guinea, Coral Eden. There are more species here than anywhere else on Earth. They learned about the oceans and coral, but did not meet the flamboyant cuttlefish.
We're in Papua New Guinea, Milne Bay Province, one of the most beautiful coral regions left on the planet. I'm here to look at ocean acidification happening naturally on site in the field.
A few years back, I found some vents where carbon dioxide is bubbling out of the seafloor.
I'm going to look at the bubbles, which I've never seen before. So for me, it's pretty interesting.
The intensity of bubbles is different in different places.
We can look into the future here and look what reefs might be like in 50 years, 100.
Bubbles coming up and it's eaten away the whole of the inside of the coral. It's going to actually dissolve their skeletons while they're still alive. Losing the coral communities, we can lose at least a quarter of all the diversity of the oceans. And if you do that, the whole planet is in dire strife.
I thought, we've got to make a movie about this because this is the most important issue facing humanity. It was really quite simple for me. There was one movie I could make after Sharkwater, one message, one thing I should do, and that was revolution. We wrote up a 26-page treatment and started pitching it. It was going to be $5 million. It was going to be entirely in 3D. Warren Needler, I met through a mutual friend in Los Angeles, actually. He was interested in helping us find financing for the movie.
Right now in my life, I don't think there's anything else I'd rather be doing than this. then working with Rob on this film.
So I ran around with Warren for a year looking for cash.
Working the bounce back here in the corner.
And we were successful. It looked like we were entirely funded.
We are really at the top of our game right now. We're making the most important film that we can think of with the best technology.
Tyler was going to be part of it from the get-go. Associate producer in charge of logistics. Jen Zabawa started out as my assistant, doing everything to keep this crazy life that I had in order.
You don't bill for grip services,
And then ended up as an assistant producer.
It's nice to be a part of something that's really has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with everyone else and the mission.
I was invited to be the judge of an environmental film festival in the Amazon called the Amazonas Film Festival. And this was right at the point where we were getting Revolution off the ground. I used the Environmental Film Festival to bring two of my buddies down to Brazil to scout for Revolution. We had a blast ripping around Brazil for 2 weeks. We brought some little cameras and rented a riverboat and climbed these giant trees and tried to figure out if there was a part of Revolution that could be told through the Amazon.
So this is 40 meters up in the rainforest canopy.
Forests are the secondary producer of oxygen on our planet. Phytoplankton produces the most oxygen, little plants in the oceans, but the second biggest producer of oxygen is forests, particularly rainforests. And the biggest producer of oxygen of all the rainforests is the Amazon jungle. Most of the Amazon is in Brazil, but Brazil has been pretty heavily deforesting the Amazon for the last 20 years. And in 2005, Brazil became a net carbon emitter due to drought. So one of the biggest carbon sinks that pulls carbon out of the atmosphere actually started emitting carbon, which shows you that there's tipping points in ecosystems, that the world as we know it doesn't necessarily behave that way all the time, and that we will reach thresholds where, ecosystems will go all the way. All the ice will melt, all the forests will go, sort of thing. So it's a pretty scary stat, and that was one of the reasons why we thought we should go and check out what was happening in Brazil. We had an invitation to MC one of the biggest environmental rallies in Canada's history, Fill the Hill, Sea Day on Parliament Hill in Ottawa.
I think this is gonna be lots of fun. Eco-disturbing is some of the funnest stuff to do on Earth.
The very oceans that give us 70% of the oxygen in the air that we breathe are in jeopardy because of our government's climate policy. I was spray painted green, throwing my fists in the air and saying, we don't just need environmental policy and Priuses. Without a revolution, without a massive change, the future looks very grim. So we need to take action, and we need to take action now. And a few days later, all of our money fell away. And so we went from having $5 million to having virtually nothing. We haven't really had a chance to chat after sort of the funding fell out. I don't want to pressure you into staying involved if it's not something you don't want to be involved in.
A lot of times when you're growing up, you get told no a lot. Don't touch, don't do, you can't, won't, don't. And if there's one thing you learn from Rob is that he doesn't take no for an answer.
At the time, cameras were changing dramatically. The cameras we used on Sharkwater cost $100,000. But there were these cameras that were coming out from Hannan 5Ds that were like digital SLR cameras, just like the cameras that I used as a still photographer, but digital. And so I already had all of these lenses that could work on these cameras. I already know how to work with that style and form factor, and the camera was $3,000. So I figured if I could just buy a couple of these cameras and a backpack and a bunch of plane tickets, maybe I could go and shoot this movie myself. At that point, I had to fire everybody at our company, unfortunately, to take the tiny bit of cash that we did have and set off and tried to shoot Revolution. It's super discouraging to lose all your money, but I think at that point, it was more inspiring for me because working with a larger film budget and more people, supervisors that are watching the amount of money you spend, was really cumbersome. So it was almost an opportunity, the fact that we lost the money, to make the movie the way I wanted to make it under no time restrictions, and to not have anyone breathing down my neck. When we ran out of money on Revolution, I had no choice but to sort of lean on friends to come and shoot a lot of Revolution with me, because I couldn't afford to pay any cameramen.
I'm one of the guys that goes out there and shows people what is going down on this planet.
Together, this team can create incredibly powerful media and drive really important public support.
I feel very fortunate, actually, to be working with everybody on the team that we have. We need to infect the public with our message. I think there's great capacity for people to change.
What we're doing is we're actually going into the field, going undercover, and we're bringing that truth to the public in a way that they can't deny it.
So if I'm talking to you from this distance...
We need to go in without cameras open, you know what I mean? Go in and start looking around, and once they get comfortable with us, then we can start taking pictures. Revolution, it's not a film about sharks, but sharks are a pretty significant plot point in the film and in the evolutionary history of life on Earth.
You have to look at the sustainability. So, I mean, the amount of animals that are being pulled from the ocean, it's obviously not sustainable.
Did you get my count on sharks? 6,500. One day, one port, one place.
Julie Andersen was living in South Africa at the time and knew sharks in South Africa like the back of her hand. So I went to South Africa and sort of leaned on her and her boyfriend, Paul Wildman, and we went and shot mako sharks and great white sharks and cow sharks. Filming underwater is radically different than filming on land. Underwater, everything moves, so you're never really stuck to the bottom. Every time you breathe, the camera moves. Every time your heart beats, the camera moves. So you've got to find a way to stabilize it against something. Little cameras underwater are terrible, because every time there's a little bit of a wave or something, the camera moves, and on a giant screen, that's terrible. So you want the biggest camera possible underwater. The first cameras we used on Revolution were nicknamed Feather, because they were 100 kilograms. Giant, giant cameras. They were super steady. If you wanted to make a turn, they did one giant Steadicam sort of turn. And we ended up using another smaller camera, which was easier to free dive with and easier to move around. For me, my inspirations, documentary-wise, are BBC films, Planet Earth, Disney nature movies. They show you footage and behaviors and animals you've never seen before. And for us, if we want people to pay money to see a movie, we wanted to show them some incredible things that they could have not gotten anywhere else. So I had to find some of these animals and some of these behaviors and figure out, you know, what hadn't been shown before. I'd been to Madagascar as a wildlife photographer when I was 20 and knew where I could get some of these animals doing some pretty incredible and funny things. And because we were on such a limited budget, you know, normally as a wildlife photographer, you'd have to go to one place and sit for months waiting for an animal to do something. But I knew exactly where I could go and at what time I could get these certain behaviors in Madagascar. And we got a pretty funny scene of shifakas. Shifakas are lemurs, really primitive primates, relatives of ours, that are 75 million years old. And they've got 4 hands, no feet, because they spend all their lives in the trees. But when they get into stressful situations, they're forced to cross land. They have to dance sideways. So they do this really funny dance. And for us, it was a really interesting way of illustrating, you know, what's happening to these species, because their habitat's decreasing, so they've got to cross roads and cross farmland to get to new areas of forest. I set out to make a film to save sharks, and I'm in way over my head. We have a decision to make, and we don't have much time. We made a rough cut of Revolution, and our distributors had seen it, they liked it, but it sort of burnt me out making the movie, because I was on it for so long. And right when I needed a break, David Hannan called and said, "We're doing a trip to Papua New Guinea, do you want to come?" So I went to Papua New Guinea without really thinking I was going to shoot anything for Revolution. I thought Revolution was done, I'm just editing it. But in Papua New Guinea, I found the flamboyant cuttlefish. Filming the flamboyant cuttlefish required a lot of patience because animals aren't used to people being around them underwater. They're not used to valves and bubbles, and almost nothing underwater makes bubbles. So to make sure the cuttlefish was used to us, I had to spend, a day underwater just hanging out with the cuttlefish. And then slowly it got comfortable enough with me that it started to lay eggs underwater. And that's a pretty beautiful thing, that a creature has become so comfortable with you, it's fine to, be entirely vulnerable. Stayed for another month so they could hatch, and got the flamboyant cuttlefish hatching. So this epic wildlife footage of an animal that no one had ever seen before, doing things no one had ever seen before, was ours, and we had the perfect ending to Revolution. We finished the movie just days before it came out at the Toronto Film Festival, which was a little stressful. Toronto's my hometown. I've got a lot of friends here and family here. At that point, that was the first public screening of Revolution, and we had no idea whether it was going to work and whether people would actually like the movie as a journey, because Revolution has so much information in it. It's 3.5 billion years of evolution. We'd recently got shark fin banned in Toronto because of the fin-free movement, and so there was a lot of support for us and for our conservation initiatives. But it was still nerve-wracking.
Thank you, Toronto Film Festival, for having me. And thank you, everybody, for coming. I'm super honored you're all here.
So the movie premiered, and it was amazing. We had 2 sold-out screenings. To get a standing ovation and to get some audience choice accolades was huge for us, and made us think, okay, we've got something here that will work, not just as a message, but as a movie. I hope that people come away from Revolution with a love of life, because it's life that gives us our food, our water, and our air.
There's nothing more important than saving the natural world that we live in. There is nothing more important than giving my kids exactly what I have access to or more.
We want to get the ground shaking. We want to get people talking. And we want to get people actively working together to create the change that we need.
We depend on life for our own survival. And I hope that that love helps people go to bat to fight for the ecosystems that we depend on. To shark fin soup, that showed us, yeah, humanity's good. They will do it.
There's so many well-known people all together have that goodwill going to keep all those wild animals.
With every year, there's a higher proportion of fish stocks collapse.
To success in the modern world. It's basically money at any price.
And at some point, and we're already hitting it in parts of the world.
Well, I've learned to not name corals after places because they always went somewhere else. Girlfriends because they never last, and colour because the colours are always different somewhere else.
Ocean acidification is probably the most harmful thing it's possible to do to a coral reef because it will stop them from growing.
Most corals are slowing down by 10–15% now.
Yeah.
And so by mid-century, these guys will be out of business.
It took 4 million years for coral.
It's one of the most beautiful coral regions left on the planet.
A few years back, I found some vents where carbon dioxide is bubbling out of the seafloor. Intensity of bubbles is different in different places.
I don't think there's anything else I'd rather be doing than this, than working with Rob on this film.
Really at the top of our game right now. We're making the most important film that we can think.
To me, it has everything to do with everyone else. And the mission.
I think this is going to be lots of fun. Eco-disturbing is some of the funnest stuff to do on Earth.
Are in jeopardy because of our government's climate policy.
What is going down on this planet?
Together, this team can create incredibly powerful media and drive really important public support.
I feel very fortunate, actually, to be working with everybody on
It sort of burnt me out making the movie because I was on it for so long.